On my wedding day, Alex Hawthorne left me in a pristine white gown, heart pounding in a grand cathedral filled with guests, to sprint off and save his fragile stepsister Maribel, who'd threatened to jump from a rooftop, leaving me abandoned. At the altar in front of everyone, wedding vows still on my lips, and a sea of stunned faces watching. Standing there in my dress, utterly mortified, I faced the onlookers and declared, "Whoever steps forward now, I will become your bride." 3. Years later, Alex returned with Maribel. I was at the Hawthorne mansion, comfortably settled on a leather sofa, pregnant, watching television and sipping soup. Alex's gaze fixed on my swollen stomach. "Whose child is that?" I smiled. "It's a Hawthorne child." He pulled me to my feet. "You slut! I left for 3 years, and now you're claiming that child is mine?" "I never said it was yours, and you weren't the only Hawthorne man," I calmly replied. Maribel interjected. "He allowed you to keep the Hawthorne name and the wealth, and now you're expecting someone else's baby?" I glared at her. "You seduced your own stepbrother. Who are you to speak of shame?" Turning to Alex with feigned innocence, Maribel said, "We've been strictly platonic for years, but she's making you look like a fool." He struck me. "Get out of this house." 3 years ago, after being shamed at the altar, I married Will Hawthorne, Alex's uncle. Known as the Ice King, he fiercely protected me. Since I became pregnant, he's treated me like a treasure. If he knew Alex hit me, there would be dire consequences. To prevent a tragedy, I warned, "Leave now, and I will forget this happened." They laughed. "This whore is using that child to take over the Hawthorne fortune," Maribel shouted. "From the day you ran off, I said Grandfather Hawthorne removed you from the family." "None of this belongs to you anymore," Maribel scoffed. "He didn't mean it. Alex is the only grandson." Alex sneered. "Everything here is mine." I placed a hand on my abdomen. "Not anymore. My child is also a Hawthorne. You're trying to pass off a bastard as a Hawthorne heir." He snapped, striking me again. I fell, clutching my stomach. Worried for the baby, I said, "The child is Will's." He shoved the soup bowl into my mouth. I choked, blood mixing with porcelain shards. Maribel crushed my hand with her heel. "This child took everything from us," Alex growled. "You'll pay." Maribel aimed her stiletto at my belly. I blocked her with trembling hands. This child was our miracle. After years of treatments, I couldn't let them harm it. Alex laughed. "Everyone knows Will is infertile. I'm the only true heir." "If you don't believe me," I said, "call Will. He'll tell you." Alex smashed my phone. "If he sees I can't control my own woman, he won't give me the company." Maribel sneered, "Let's get rid of that bastard and tell Grandfather." She pressed her heel into my belly. Pain surged through me. "Please," I begged, "spare my child." Maribel pulled out her phone. "Bark like a dog and say you're a promiscuous whore. Do that and we'll spare it for my baby." I knelt. "Woof, woof, I'm a promiscuous whore." Maribel smirked. "Did you think, when I begged you not to marry Alex, that you'd end up like this?" I had refused to break the engagement years ago because it would have ruined my family's business. I never imagined her hatred would last this long. "Please," I whispered. "Call an ambulance." Alex stomped on my back. My belly hit the floor. The pain was unbearable. "You promised to spare my baby," I cried. "I didn't," he said coldly. He kicked me hard. Blood spilled down my legs. The baby stopped moving. "You'll regret this," I said through tears. "Still not broken?" Maribel sneered. "Then more punishment." She brought a rope. They tied my hands and dragged me across the floor, leaving a trail of blood. Alex kicked me into the pool. Bound, I sank. Just as I was about to lose consciousness, he pulled me up. "Learned your lesson yet?" "I'm in labor," I gasped. "Please call an ambulance." He spat on me. "Still thinking about that bastard? I'll end this now." He raised his foot to kick me again, but the gates burst open. Will stood there, his eyes cold as death. "Stop!" Alex was startled by his uncle's shout, instinctively dropping the rope. He had always been afraid of his uncle, known as the Ice King. But when he saw Grandfather Hawthorne following Will, Alex regained his composure. After all, he was the only grandson in the family, the apple of his grandfather's eye. He rushed to embrace Grandfather Hawthorne, forcing out a few tears. "Grandpa, I've missed you so much these past 3 years." Maribel also stepped forward as the Hawthornes' adopted daughter. She wasn't as close to Grandfather Hawthorne as Alex. She stood to the side and said, "Grandpa, Alex and I know we were wrong. Alex has decided to come back and continue the wedding with Sophia. We just didn't expect," Alex added with a resentful tone. "We didn't expect this whore to be so shameless, cheating on me and getting pregnant with a bastard, trying to pass it off as a Hawthorne child. But don't worry, Grandpa. I've already taken care of the bastard in her belly. The Hawthorne name won't be disgraced." Hearing this, Grandfather Hawthorne pushed Alex away and finally saw me, barely alive by the pool. Will ran to my side, his hands trembling as he untied the ropes binding my limbs. Seeing the blood flowing from my lower body, even his voice shook. "Sophia, how are you?" I looked at Will, tears streaming down my face. "Will, the baby. Save the baby." "Grandfather." Hawthorne stared at the scene in disbelief. He raised his cane and struck Alex hard. "You beast! What have you done?" Alex dodged while glaring at me resentfully. "Grandpa, that whore Sophia used the Hawthorne name to cuckold me. She's fooled you and Uncle Will. I never touched her. That child in her belly isn't mine." Maribel chimed in. "That's right, Grandpa. Alex and I just got back to the Hawthorne house today. Her belly is already 6 or 7 months along. It must be some illegitimate child." Grandfather Hawthorne struck Maribel with his cane. "The child in Sophia's belly is not a bastard. It's a Hawthorne descendant," Alex shouted. "Grandpa, that's impossible. I never touched her." Will picked up my bleeding body and kicked Alex to the ground, his eyes full of murderous intent as he looked at him and Maribel. "If anything happens to the child in Sophia's womb, I'll have your lives." With that, he carried me hurriedly to the hospital. Alex was so terrified by his uncle's killing intent that he didn't dare breathe. After Will left, he took a deep breath and looked at his grandfather. "Grandpa, has Uncle gone mad? How can he threaten my life for that promiscuous woman and her bastard child?" Maribel whispered beside him. "Alex, could this all be a plot by Sophia and Uncle Will? Uncle is infertile, so maybe they're using the bastard in Sophia's belly to seize your inheritance." Alex immediately turned to Grandfather Hawthorne. "Grandpa, you must stand up for me. All the Hawthorne fortune belongs to me. It can't fall into outsiders' hands." Seeing that they still hadn't grasped the situation, even when facing death, Grandfather Hawthorne angrily struck Alex's head with his cane. "To think that I, Theodore Hawthorne, known for my wisdom, could have such a foolish descendant. The child in Sophia's belly is not a bastard. It's Will's child." Upon hearing this, Alex and Maribel were stunned. After a long moment, Alex finally spoke. "How is that possible? Sophia is my wife. How could she be with Uncle? And isn't Uncle asexual and sterile?" Grandfather Hawthorne looked at Alex with disappointment. "When you ran away from the wedding, Sophia immediately married Will. The whole city knows this. How could you not?" Alex was taken aback. After eloping with Maribel, they had cut off all contact with the city, fearing they would be caught. They had been traveling abroad. It wasn't until recently, when all his cards were frozen, that they found themselves penniless. They had to wash dishes for a month just to scrape together enough for plane tickets home. After returning, they headed straight for the Hawthorne mansion, with no time to catch up on the news. It's true that Will was born infertile, but it wasn't completely hopeless. These past few years, he's consulted specialists both domestically and abroad. That's how he and Sophia conceived, Grandfather Hawthorne added painfully. "And now you've ruined everything." Remembering his uncle's ruthless methods, Alex collapsed to the ground as if all strength had left his body. Just then, several stern-faced bodyguards walked in from outside. The two immediately trembled in fear, begging Grandfather Hawthorne for help. "Grandpa, save me! I don't want to die! Grandpa! Grandpa!" The bodyguards ignored their pleas and dragged them away. After Will carried me into the car, the driver sped off, reaching the hospital in just 10 minutes. I was rushed into the delivery room. Half an hour later, I gave birth to a stillborn baby boy. The doctor was about to dispose of the body as per usual procedure. I stopped her. "Bring the baby to me." She replied with a hint of reluctance. "Mrs. Hawthorne, it's better not to look. It might leave psychological trauma." I said weakly. "He's my child. No matter what, I should see him off one last time." At Will's signal, the doctor handed the fetus to me. His skin was bright red, only slightly larger than my palm. I cradled him carefully in my arms, afraid that the slightest movement might hurt him. Just this morning, he had been rolling around happily in my belly, interacting with me. Now he was gone forever, without a sound. Tears flowed uncontrollably from my eyes. "Baby, Mommy couldn't protect you. I'm so sorry, baby. Don't blame Mommy. Don't be angry with Mommy. Please wake up, okay?" I placed the baby on my chest, trying to transfer my body heat to him, hoping for a miracle. But in the end, nothing happened. Will, his eyes red, embraced me and the baby. I knew his grief was no less than mine. Will was 10 years older than me. When Alex abandoned me at the altar, Will stepped up and married me. I thought he had only done it to save face for the Hawthorne and Winters families' business partnership. That night, I placed divorce papers in front of him, but he tore them up. Will told me that for his 34 years of life, he had always been asexual. But that day, seeing me in my wedding dress, he had fallen in love at first sight. He said this, marriage was real for him, and he hoped I would take it seriously too. After our marriage, he showered me with love, expensive jewelry, haute couture dresses. He gave them to me before I could even ask. He was also incredibly attentive in our daily life. With my young heart, I gradually fell for him too. Except, for being older, he was also well endowed. Every night he would leave me in ecstasy. Later, when I saw a friend's newborn baby, my heart melted. I started to want a child of my own, but was born with fertility issues. To fulfill my wish, he started seeking medical treatment everywhere, both domestically and abroad. The day I found out I was pregnant, he was so happy that he gave all his company employees an extra month's salary, wanting everyone to share in our joy. The night we felt the baby's first movements, Will excitedly kissed my belly, saying that having me and the baby was enough for this lifetime. We personally chose the crib, baby clothes, and toys for our home, all carrying our welcome and love for this child. But now, everything was gone. Thinking of Alex and Maribel's vicious faces, a deep hatred burned in my heart. I wanted to tear them to pieces. "Will, it was Alex and Maribel who killed our baby." Will held me and the baby tightly, his eyes full of murderous intent. "Sophia, don't worry. I won't let those who hurt you and our child go unpunished. The suffering you endured today, I'll make them pay back 100-fold. I held our baby for a day and a night before finally accepting that he had left us forever. Will and I had the baby's remains cremated and buried in the city's most auspicious cemetery. Alex and Maribel were brought to kneel before the baby's tombstone by the bodyguards. After just one day, I could barely recognize the two. Alex and Maribel were disheveled, their faces swollen like pig heads. Their arms, bodies, and legs were covered in bleeding wounds. Will had ordered them to be whipped with chili water-soaked whips until their skin split open, then thrown into a sewage pool overnight. They still reeked of the foul odor. Will handed me an iron rod. "Sophia, you can do whatever you want to, them. I'll take care of any consequences." I took the rod and looked at them. Alex and Maribel immediately showed terror in their eyes, shaking their heads repeatedly. "No, no." Just as I raised the rod, aiming for their heads and about to swing, down, Grandfather Hawthorne hurried over with his cane, calling out, "Sophia, spare their lives!" Seeing Grandfather Hawthorne, Alex seemed to see a lifeline. He quickly begged, "Grandpa, she's going to kill me. Please save me." Overnight, Grandfather Hawthorne's hair had turned almost completely white, his face unusually tired and haggard. He walked up to me, taking several deep breaths, and looked at me with guilt. "Sophia, Alex, this fool indiscriminately killed your and Will's child. He should be unforgivable, but—" I gripped the rod tightly, looking coldly at Grandfather Hawthorne standing before me. Alex's parents had died early, and he was practically raised by Grandfather Hawthorne. The old man's deep affection for him made his plea understandable. But Was Alex's life worth more than my child's? The image of my baby struggling in my womb yesterday, silently begging me for help, was still vivid in my mind. No plea would work today. But to my surprise, Grandfather Hawthorne, at his advanced age, knelt before me. Alex lost his parents as a child and was raised by me. His terrible mistake today is also due to my failure in disciplining him. Today, let this old man die with him to atone for the sin against our lost grandchild. Hearing this, Alex immediately protested, "Grandpa, I don't want to die, I don't want to die." He broke free from the bodyguards and ran to Grandfather Hawthorne, trying to pull him up. "Grandpa, how can you kneel to her? Get up and take me away!" Grandfather Hawthorne shook off Alex's arm and struck him mercilessly with his cane. "You, beast, kneel down and beg forgiveness from your aunt and the dead child." Whether beaten into submission by Grandfather Hawthorne or realizing that his grandfather could no longer protect him, Alex finally knelt at my feet, repeatedly kowtowing. Beside him, Grandfather Hawthorne also bowed to me. "If you must kill, kill me first. This way I can face Alex's parents in the afterlife with some dignity." I staggered back a step, still holding the iron rod. This man, once a titan of industry who had lived a proud life, was now kneeling before me. My emotions were in turmoil. If Grandfather Hawthorne had taken a strong stance to protect Alex, I would have been even more resolute. With Will now in control of the Hawthorne family, Grandfather would have ultimately lost. But now, with him offering his life in place of his grandson's, I was at a loss for what to do. Will steadied me from behind, his gaze sharp as he looked over everyone present. He then angrily rebuked, "Are you all deaf? How dare you let the old master carry on like this? Take him away immediately." The bodyguards quickly reacted, 2 of them coming forward to escort Grandfather Hawthorne away. Will, seeing that I couldn't bring myself to act, took the iron rod from my hand and said, "I'm the child's father. The task of revenge should fall to me." "Sophia," he stepped back, "you shouldn't have to see this." With their last hope gone, Alex and Maribel looked at Will approaching them with the iron rod. Their eyes filled with terror, their bodies shaking. "Uncle, I'm your nephew. If you kill me, how will you face Grandpa? How will you face my father in the afterlife? How will you face the Hawthorne ancestors?" Will raised the rod, his voice harsh. "That's no longer your concern." The iron rod whistled through the air, about to crash down on Alex's head. He was so frightened that he wet himself. At the critical moment, I reached out and grabbed Will's arm. Will turned to look at me. I took a deep breath and said, "Letting them die like this is too easy. Why don't we break their limbs and banish them from the Hawthorne family? Let them suffer all the hardships of life." Will frowned. "Sophia, you don't need to worry about what he said. I don't care about reputation. I only want to avenge you and our child. Will, sometimes death isn't the worst punishment. They've grown up in the Hawthorne family, accustomed to a life of luxury. If we cripple them now, force them to live a life worse than ordinary people, as invalids, that would be the greatest punishment." Will pondered for a moment, then tossed the iron rod to a bodyguard and coldly ordered, "Do as my wife says." The bodyguard took the rod and mercilessly struck Alex and Maribel's limbs. Their screams of agony filled the air. I watched the scene coldly, then gently touched our child's tombstone. "Baby, Mommy and Daddy have avenged you. If you're no longer angry, please come back to us soon, okay?" Will's large hand covered mine. "We will, Sophia. Our baby will definitely come back to us." Afterward, fearing that staying in the Hawthorne mansion would remind me of our loss, Will moved us out. Whenever he had time, he would take me traveling to help me heal. Although neither of us mentioned the child again, we both knew it would be a permanent scar in our hearts. 3 years later, I became pregnant again. From the moment we found out, Will became incredibly protective. He hired dozens of bodyguards and nannies to surround me, not even letting a fly get near me. After the 5th month of pregnancy, Will stopped going to the office, staying home to watch over me constantly. As my belly grew, my feet became severely swollen. Every night, Will would comfort me, sighing with worry as he looked at my belly, unable to sleep. I smoothed the wrinkles between his brows, smiling. Will, I think you're the one with prenatal anxiety. Should I take you to see a doctor tomorrow? Will gently placed his hand on my belly. Sophia, I'm so worried. Nothing can happen to this child. I put my hand over his. It won't. This time our baby will definitely come to us safe and sound. Soon after, I safely gave birth to a boy. Only then did the pain of losing our first child finally begin to fade for both Will and me. We held the baby's 100th day celebration at the city's most luxurious hotel. Just as Will and I got out of the car with our baby, a shabbily dressed man with a twisted gait rushed towards us. Before he could reach us, he was stopped by a wall of bodyguards. At first, I thought he was a beggar. Considering it was a joyous day, I was about to have someone take him away and give him some food and necessities. But when he spoke, I realized this man was actually Alex. Uncle, Aunt, now that you have a new child, please let me return to the Hawthorne family. I truly know I was wrong. Please, let me come back. After Alex and Maribel were crippled, they didn't receive timely treatment, leaving them both severely disabled. The hardships of the past few years had worn Alex down to a beggar-like state. Countless times in his midnight dreams, he regretted believing Maribel's lies and choosing to run away from the wedding. Maribel had married a man in his 50s 2 years ago, leaving Alex behind. His physical disabilities and dire living conditions had made him contemplate suicide numerous times. The only thing that kept him going was the hope that if Will and I had another child, we might show mercy and let him return to the Hawthorne family. And he had finally waited for this day. Will looked at him coldly and said, "Sparing your life was already a great mercy. Returning to the Hawthorne family? Keep dreaming." Then he ordered the bodyguards to throw Alex out. This action completely shattered Alex's hope of returning to the Hawthorne family. He went back to his rented room and committed suicide shortly after. When we received this news, Will and I were playing with our child. After a moment of contemplation, Will still ordered someone to collect Alex's ashes. Alex Hawthorne, the final confession. I was the favored grandson, the heir to the Hawthorne legacy. The name, the fortune, everything was supposed to be mine one day. But on the day of my wedding to Sophia Winters, everything fell apart. Maribel, my stepsister, threatened to end her life. She was on a rooftop, weeping, saying she couldn't bear to see me marry someone else. I hesitated, not because I loved her, but because I felt a sense of responsibility for her. I chose to save her. I left Sophia at the altar, believing I could explain later, that she would understand, that she would forgive me. But when I returned 3 years later, everything had changed. Sophia was pregnant, sitting on the Hawthorne mansion's couch as if she owned the place. She smiled at me with disdain and said, "It's a Hawthorne child." That burned me to my core. Will, my uncle, the cold, distant man who had always lived in the family's shadow? He married her, my fiancé, and got her pregnant, despite being sterile? Impossible. I couldn't accept it. Rage blinded me. The humiliation, the jealousy, the thought of losing everything to them, all of it tangled with fear. Fear that grandfather would realize I wasn't worthy of inheriting anything. So I acted like a monster. Violence, cruel words. I tried to force the truth out of her, but it wasn't truth I wanted. It was control. It was wounded pride. Maribel egged me on. She hated Sophia too, maybe even more than I did. But things got out of hand. When Will showed up, I knew it was over. Not just because he was powerful, but because in his eyes, I saw something I never had. Real love. When I saw grandfather push me aside and run to Sophia, everything I was shattered in that moment. And when the truth came out, the child was indeed Will's. My uncle, the sterile man, had won. They let me live, but they took everything. The inheritance, the name, my body. We were tortured, beaten, humiliated in front of a child's grave, one who died because of me. And still I thought that maybe one day they might forgive me. 3 years later, when I saw they had another child, I gathered the courage to ask. Not for the fortune, Just a place in the family, a corner, a shred of dignity. But Will looked at me like I was trash. He said, "Rejoin this family? Keep dreaming." I was thrown out like a dying dog. That night, I sat on the bed of the filthy room I rented with my last bill. I looked at my useless hands, my crooked legs, my disfigured face. No one would ever recognize me as Alex Hawthorne again, not even me. And so I wrote this confession, not to justify my actions, but to say the love I wasted is what destroyed me. If you're reading this, I may already be gone, but I hope that Sophia someday finds peace, and that that he protects this new child the way I should have. Goodbye. Alex Hawthorne.